Midwest region.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
And
it was
then,
fun, great job.
yeah, and then was this a second act or what?
I retired, and then BBB asked, would you come on and do some of these studies after we'd moved down here by St. Louis? And I'm like, yeah, you want to pay me? And they said, sure. So we've been doing this for about 3 years now.
Oh, okay, so that's kind of new then, really, 3 years. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's been fascinating, and it's been really good work. I'm convinced we've really done a lot of good work stuff here, and we've been able to really spend some time and go in depth on some of these topics and see what's going on. Has been fascinating, and some of our studies have gotten tremendous coverage. And so there are some areas that I think people just didn't really believe existed before we did our studies, like romance fraud. I mean, that is a massive issue, and nobody, even at the Federal Trade Commission, really took that seriously. Oh, this is just a random set of late middle-aged ladies being ripped off, and they didn't realize how devastating this is emotionally and how often this happens, and that it's worldwide. So we really educate, and I think a lot of law enforcement use these studies for their own training. I've talked to AUSAs, federal prosecutors, who've even used them to put into with judges to explain how the scam works. So we're pretty pleased. I think this stuff has been pretty successful.
yeah, that's great. So what is your official title? What do you like to be called?
What I am called is an international investigation specialist for the Better Business Bureau, and I am Steve Baker. Sounds just like it, spells just like it sounds.
How many of you are there in the BBB?
One.
Oh, you're the only dude. You're the only guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. What does your everyday look like?
Well, I check the email, and there's something coming up for the next study, so I do a lot of interviews whenever called for. And one of the things of having a couple of months to do these studies is I can learn about an area I haven't before, and within Primatur, the BBB behind me, I can kind of call whoever I want. They may not call back, but I've got a lot of contacts myself from my career at the FTC, and I know a lot of people that know a lot of stuff. But people are pretty, the fact this is for the Better Business Bureau, I think people realize that we're going to be fair. We want the facts, what's going on, and provide them with some good information. So it's been a really interesting ride.
Yeah. So how do the subjects get picked for the study? Is it sometimes your idea, or is it the Better?
Sometimes mine. This is actually funded. This was the original idea of Michelle Corey here, and she joined with 4 other Better Business Bureaus to decide that they were going to fund this project. So they do that, and so it's really credit to them for deciding to come up with the money. They had tried to interest the national office originally, and weren't really interested. And now I think they're pretty proud of it, even the national office, even though it's funded by those 5 offices.
And you're like, reimburse the local office, thank you. Just kidding. Okay, so let me ask you, let me just start it, I guess, because none of us should be surprised to hear that there are online scams on social media. But I thought what was really interesting about your study is that you really looked at the depth of it and the links that people go to, and the numbers I thought were fascinating. What do you think?
Yeah, no, we really tried to look at online shopping fraud and see what it consisted of, and I was surprised, and really kind of drilling down deep into the data, that this is far and away the worst problem that the Better Business Bureau has hearing from consumers. It's like massively. There isn't anything that's even close second. So it is that, and it's not only the scam tracker complaints to the Better Business Bureau, it's also companies that claim a U.S. address, and they could claim to be, for example, in St. Louis, even though they're really in China or someplace like that. So the BBB puts out profiles on them because the company claims to be in St. Louis and assigns them an F when people start complaining. And they have got over 5,000 of profiles around the country for businesses that claim to be local that aren't, that are just crooks, this online shopping. So it's way more than any other category of complaints that they get as well. So this is really, really a huge problem. And the online shopping stuff, particularly involving Facebook and Instagram, for people who didn't have something specific in mind and we ended up losing money on online shopping. 70% of the time it started on Facebook or Instagram.
Wow. Okay.
So in other words, what's happening is the Chinese people can't get access to Facebook and Instagram. Nonetheless, people in China are spending billions of dollars on advertising on Facebook and Instagram. I'm not saying that all that is false advertising, of course, but a tremendous amount is, and it's really, really a massive, massive, massive problem. It's been called to their attention. I've talked to small businesses who, in the United States, who've had the pictures or copies of their website made, and people posting them online for sale. And then if people get anything in these scams, a lot of them don't get anything at all. And if they do, it's counterfeit or it's something completely different from what they asked. For example, I talked to one woman who thought she was buying a rattan sofa for her patio, and 3 months later she gets in the mail from China, she gets a burlap bag.
Right.
And of course they want her, then she calls the company and they want her to send it back, and the shipping to China is of course way more than the things even were. So this is very, very, very common. I've talked to another friend of mine in the law enforcement in Canada, said he has seen situations where people ordered a cordless drill and they got a screwdriver in the mail. Or, of course, there's a massive situation a couple years ago where people were ordering quilts, thinking they were handmade in Salem, Oregon. And they weren't. If any of the people got anything, they came from China, and it was just a simple sheet of fabric or something, no resemblance to an actual handmade quilt. But it's the sort of stuff people thought, well, that would be a nice thing to be able to give. Seems like a promising gift. So these scammers are taking the ideas, photos from real businesses, posting them up on website. They form Facebook pages, and then they can advertise on Facebook. And people whose business is affected find it is just these things pop up really fast. It's hard to get Facebook to take these things down, and even when they do, they pop back up again. Some small business said it's almost a full-time job just addressing the fraud on Facebook and Instagram. Talked to one woman who's an artist in Nebraska, and she actually got a call from some guys in China. And they're like sending out, she has some big art projects. They're actually interesting. She carves things out of the back of vintage handsaws. And so they were copying her stuff. They were sending people plastic. It was about the size of a remote control. But they called her and asked her if she would like go in with them. And they said that...
To scam people?
Yeah. She did not want to, but they said, we've got 100 people here in our office, don't do anything but go around and borrow stuff from images from websites, and that's what we do. And she said, aren't you worried about getting in trouble? The guy laughs at her, says, this is China. He says, nobody cares what we do. So this is really, it's a big problem. Facebook knows about it. These ads violate their terms of service around community rules, but they really don't do anything very effective to fight it.
And why don't they do anything effective to fight it? It seems like they would want to do that for their customers.
Can I get some water, please?
Yes, sure.
Because the allegations are that they don't really have an economic incentive to fight it. In other words, that they sometimes spend some money on the problem, but they really don't want to solve it because they like the revenue.
They like the revenue that the Chinese are spending.
Exactly. Those are the allegations. There's actually a class action filed in federal court in California against Facebook, alleging that they don't do this. We'll see where that goes. Yeah. Facebook's alleging Section 230 immunity, but you know.
What's Section 230 immunity? What does that mean?
Oh, that is under the Communications Decency Act, where you can't sue websites that are platforms. So that's the big thing that everybody keeps pointing to on trying to remove that as the.
Sorry, go ahead and have a drink.
I apologize. My voice has just been acting up.
I'm okay, thank you. You have touched on so much. I don't really need to ask you that much. What did you think was the most interesting piece of data that you found when you were collecting all this information for your study?
I was surprised at the volume of this. I mean, this is just, I personally could not recommend that anybody buy anything on Facebook feeds anymore. It seems safe while you're there. The other thing that's a little insidious here is they take credit cards. So they've got access to the credit card system, which most scams don't have. Most scams want access some other way. And what we found in what we found with other Better Business Bureau studies is that not everybody knows they should be able to get their money back if they use their credit or debit card or PayPal. But they can, and so they need to call the number on the back of their card, and they should absolutely do that. And they can do this if what they got is not what they ordered. In other words, they got a counterfeit or a burlap bag, then they should be able to call and get their money back. I talked to a friend of mine about 2 weeks ago who had bought a down coat online. He got some total piece of crap in the mail, and he had been fighting with this company by email for a week and was totally frustrated. And I said, don't, just go to your credit card company. They'll understand. Tell them it's significantly not as described is the magic words, and they should do it. And since these folks charge by credit card, the credit card companies obviously don't want to lose money, or the banks don't want to lose money. So they should be able to track these folks down. Partly, so it's important to complain not only so that you can get your money back and protect other people, but also so that the credit card companies can try to figure out who in the world it is that's into their credit card system illegitimately and try to cut them off.
Okay, that's great information. Significantly not as advertised.
Significantly not as described.
Or described. Okay,
those are the magic words.
I love that. Well, this is an easy question, but the reports of loss and the amount of money loss have grown exponentially over the years. Why is that? Why are more people shopping online? You addressed that in your study, but.
Well, I mean, part of it, of course, is the pandemic, because there was a time period when it was not easy to go to stores. But this problem's continuing to increase even as the pandemic has receded. I think the crooks have decided that we're making lots of money, nobody's catching us. What the hell, let's expand our efforts. That's what scammers do. And until there is some law enforcement effort, or Facebook cuts them off, or the credit card companies do, I fear it's going to continue to be a real problem. So people need to be really, really cautious. Pardon me. So people need to be really, really cautious shopping online, and even professional-looking sites can be scammed. And for counterfeit goods, a lot of us think of counterfeit goods only consisting of things like luxury purses or designer sunglasses, but it's not. I mean, these folks counterfeit everything anymore. Flea collars, hydro flask mugs, auto parts, all that stuff is, and you've really, really got to be super careful shopping online. It's not a bad idea to go to a local store.
Right, it's never a bad idea. It is funny, I was just watching like one of these makeup influencers yesterday on YouTube, and he had his palette, his makeup eyeshadow palette, and a counterfeit. And it looked exactly the same, except for when he put the makeup on, and it was like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't think that you're buying counterfeit makeup, or counterfeit hydro flask. But a lot of it's counterfeit. No, and some of the counterfeit makeup actually has harmful chemicals in it. Yeah. And even scarier, people are, pardon me, even scarier, people are selling counterfeit prescription drugs. So if you think you're going to a Canadian pharmacy or something you find online, the stuff has really come from China, and it may well have fentanyl in it. It can have really harmful substances. There's actually been reports of a lot of people dying in Sub-Saharan Africa from counterfeit drugs. Wow. Do you think that's a story that we could do locally? I mean, is there anyone you
I no idea. No, nothing here.
Okay, so then, I mean, you've kind of addressed it. The best advice to avoid a scam, just get off Facebook, get off Instagram.
Well, you can do that. You can check companies out at bbb.org. That's free, and it's got most businesses in the United States, whether they're accredited members of the Better Business Bureau or not. So that's always a good resource to check them out. And there's a place called scamadvisors.com where you can check out the legitimacy of websites. And so if this website that has only been in business, there's only had the website for 3 or 4 days, you're probably dealing with a scammer. But you can't just, you got to check it out. Don't be very, very careful of reviews. The internet is full of fake reviews, and you really can't trust them. And a lot of people really try to do that, even on Amazon. I mean, there's whole villages in India, as I understand it, where they don't do anything but sit around all day and write fake reviews for products. And if you do, look at the 1-star reviews first. I had one thing that had thousands of reviews on it. I looked at the thing on Amazon, and the 1-star review says, this stuff's counterfeit. Okay, well, good to know. Start there. I'm going to check it out with the Better Business Bureau.
Wow. You have such great information. Is there anything that I'm missing with this study that you want to mention? How long did it take? Was it...
I was probably worked on it off and on for about 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was quite a bit in it. But no, I mean, this is a massive amount of fraud, and people, this is the sort of stuff. This is not just like I heard from my neighbor about this. This is something that you're very likely to encounter in your own life if you shop online. I mean, it's like gonna happen. I hate to say it, but it really is. It's not rare. It's not the next town over last year. This is something we're all gonna see every day.
Wow. Oh, yikes. Well, let's switch to pet scams, if you're comfortable with that.
Sure.
And what was the pet scam? Was that a study too, or was that just...
That was my very first study that I did, and we've updated it now, because that was in 2017.
Okay.
And okay. So let's say you're looking for a pet. Now, the first place a lot of people go these days is online, and unfortunately, the internet is saturated with fake pet pictures and fake pet profiles. People claim to be breeders selling pets. I don't think you can look for a pet online without running across a scam. It is that common. You've really, really got to be incredibly cautious. So if you run across the scammers, they will give you a price for the dog, puppy. And then after you pay that, usually with Zelle, because these folks like cash apps, then they are supposed to ship the puppy, airfare for the puppy, supposedly. They don't want you to see it in person. And if you send the money for the shipping, then they claim that you need money for a special crate, or you need some sort of COVID vaccination thing for the puppy. And if you send that, they want still more money because the puppy is stranded in an airport sometime, and it's going to be there. And they'll drag this out and keep demanding money until you finally figure out it's a scam. These puppies don't exist. So this is a massive, massive, massive problem. This is 31% now of the online shopping complaints the Better Business Bureau gets are about puppies. I mean, it's also kittens, exotic birds. We see some of that too, but primarily puppies. So we have, this is up, the complaints about puppies are up 40% from 2019. The average losses are about $1,000. And it's also emotionally wrenching. People get really, really invested in these puppies or kittens. And they know that Christmas is an important time when people are looking to add somebody to their family. I gave you 3 websites. The petscams.com says they're still active. For example, it's christmasdocsandpuppies.com. And they got photos of puppies in there with little Santa Claus hats on, look extremely cute. If those dogs ever existed, it was in another universe or another country, and who knows how long ago. So it turns out that the people behind these are from Cameroon, which is a country in Africa that shares a border with Nigeria. And there are people in Cameroon, in the United States, that are picking up the money, taking a cut, and sending the best back to Cameroon. They've got a whole industrial-sized scale. This is organized crime that find pictures of puppies. There's others that write descriptions for puppies or steal them elsewhere. Sometimes they even copy entire websites of legitimate pet breeders. And then, of course, they go, this is their scam. This is what they do. And they make a lot of money at it. So anybody shopping for puppies online, or kittens, for example, needs to be extraordinarily cautious. And we always recommend seeing the puppy in person. The crooks have used the coronavirus pandemic as an excuse not to try to see them in person. Or if you can't do that, ask them to do like a Zoom call or some sort of video chat with the puppy. Mm-hmm. They can't do that. They may send you a little bit of a video of a nondescript dog, but they cannot do a live chat. Mm-hmm. They don't want you to know who they are or where they are. But that will protect people. But this is very, very, unfortunately, very, very common. Mm-hmm. And it is really, really a huge problem. And I've talked to people whose kids went to bed crying for days, hoping for this puppy to arrive. I've talked to people who borrowed money from neighbors to pay the money to try to get the puppies, but they don't exist. And they're anywhere you can find a puppy on the internet. Whereas Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, puppy breed, actually they even posted these things on some pet rescue sites.
Oh, wow.
But anywhere you can think of, the crooks have thought about it. And I talked to one reporter a year or two ago, and we went to Facebook Marketplace, and the very first puppy we saw, we did a reverse image search, and the same exact photo had appeared within the last few years in Poland and Ireland and 4 or 5 places around the United States.
You're kidding. I guess that would be a good way to do it, to do
Yeah.
a reverse Google search.
It is. The crooks are figuring that out. They've got a couple tactics with that. So, but particularly the payment method was Zelle. If you send money through somebody through Zelle, you're out.
Yeah.
You have no way of getting your money back. I understand that there may be some banks that will stand behind it, but they don't have to. And we have talked to tons of people who've lost money through Zelle. So you really need, with all those cash apps, you really, really need to be careful. Yeah. There are some of these folks that actually have, they don't take credit cards, but some of them have forms for a credit card where you put in your credit card number and they steal it, and then it doesn't process because they got no ability to process credit cards, but they've just stolen your credit card number. They could use that to pay for websites that they're hosting and miscellaneous expenses to support the scam.
Gotcha. Is there anything
Young people. This is people, unfortunately with a lot of scams, people got in line that this is only something that affects older people. This puppy thing in particular, it's people in their 20s and 30s. They're the ones that lose their money. And I think we're really all at risk. So go see the puppy in person, go to a real pet breeder, go to a shelter. We just got a kitten a week ago at a pet shelter, and it's really cute. So
great. Well, that's all I have, unless you want to add anything. I'm going to talk to Sarah about Road to Load. If you've got, if you want to
if you can think of anything else I should mention.
No, I think you did.
Complain to the Better Business Bureau.
If you could turn back to her and just have a.
What is
just
this, two-shot, I guess?
Michelle, you talk to him.
Okay.
And you just listen for a second.
Well, to me, I just think it's so, we hear about scams and we think that it's not going to affect us, and then it's so common, it's so prevalent, of course it's going to affect us. I can't think of how many times I've actually bought something off of Instagram or Facebook, more than I would like to admit, and it's not intentional. It's just that it's convenient, and then I think, oh, how bad could this be? Luckily,